Get local. Bandwango. Can't say that 10 times fast. They raised $3.1 million to power tourism and experience-focused deals. Really, this is an e-commerce play. It's really exciting. I love what they're doing here. They're really unlocking this local store vendor relationship that you would normally get at the Visitors Bureau, but often you would go to the Visitors Bureau page, you'd click on a link, and boom, off you go. You're forwarded, right? But in essence, Elvis has left the building. Here we're keeping you inside the experience, and this is really what this is. It's a digital experience. It's kind of like dipping your toes a little bit into the environment that you're looking to go out and visit. And you would think that like maybe Visitors Bureau and travel has been down, but there's a lot of exploration going on. A lot of people exploring local, maybe not taking as grand a trips, but they're jumping in the Winnebago, they're piling kids in the car, they're putting the roof down, and they're going out and exploring. And these guys are really helping people get there. We talk about the fact that, you're either digital or you're not. This is a really great example of, looking at the transformation and the disruption across every single industry. There's always a way to do things better.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm loving the name here, Bandwango. You just mentioned it. Yeah, we are exploring more locally. My next door neighbor, they're in their Winnebago or whatever, the equivalent of that. I don't know if it's exactly Winnebago, but they're in their equivalent of that every single weekend. They're just like, they're gone. They're exploring locally. They're out there living life. They can't, maybe they're not traveling to Disney World as much as they used to, but now they're just traveling locally. And I think it's great to see, right? This kind of forced us into this. We're looking for different ways to entertain ourselves, different ways to get out there and explore and to learn and to still be living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think as part of that, like what Bandwango did was they unpacked the customer journey. Like follow the customer. Like you want to build a business, build it around the customer. Sounds simple, but like a lot of people start kind of in a back office thought and they think about like mechanics and stuff. These people here are taking out the friction of travel. And so in doing so, people get out the door.
Yeah, my question is, how have they been able to bridge that gap between the digital and the physical, and what does that experience look like? Are they personalizing it? Is that the key thing that they're doing?
It's part of it. It's part of it, but it's really, think about it as a store. It's a commerce store. You're going to that Visitors Bureau, and where typically they'd say like, hey, go down to Kyle's, Crab Shack. Now you can go on there and you can get coupons. You can do all that digitally. You can get that digitally redeemed when you go to Kyle's Crab Shack, all that kind of stuff. So like, it's really, really kind of, see how I put that together? I mean, I almost talked that in existence. I think we need to.
Kyle's Crab Shack. I mean, I'm in the wrong business.
I think so. I think so. We'll talk later.
Kyle Crab Shack. That could stick, Frank.
Good.
That could stick. I think I know who to hire for CX on that one.
Yes.
Pre-pandemic CX. This is an article talking about how certain things that have changed, that have changed now. We don't want to go back to the pre-pandemic CX, and we will, in fact, never be going back to pre-pandemic customer experience. Some of these things, there's 4 things in general here. Virtual services, we'll unpack these. Pickup and delivery, personalization, and health and safety. First of all, virtual services. We just talked about this. You are either digital or you are not. Virtual services. Telehealth specifically saw a boost during the pandemic. That's a duh moment. Mm-hmm. But going forward, 46% of patients would choose to receive mental health appointments virtually. Because it just makes sense.
Totally.
Just makes a lot of sense. Whether we're in a pandemic or not, it just makes a lot of sense. Time is the number one thing that we're saving. Time is the number one thing that we're giving back to the people in that process. We're eliminating friction. And so that's here to stay. Other things like pickup and delivery, right? Going to Target and just getting pickup, going to Nordstrom, getting your stuff pickup at the door, or delivery, right? The DoorDash is the Grubhub. Like, these things were amplified. Of course, we had them before. Mm-hmm. They were amplified. They're not going away. They're going to be more amplified even so.
Yeah. I think the pandemic put a lot of the things that we used to do in a storage facility. And we're finding out that we don't need that diesel-powered turtleneck sweater anymore. It doesn't make sense. Like, we're not using it. We're not asking for it. And a lot of these things are that way. And I think there's another side to it, too, is that, like, our personal freedoms, our personal time we would rather spend that like enjoying ourselves, enjoying our family, exercising, rather than going down to the store, making a visit to that doctor, when quite literally this can all be done digitally and much more efficiently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, give me a good experience so that I can go live my own experience, right? That's what this is about.
Yes.
So again, this topic comes up again, personalization. Like personalization, the studies that we've done even, that Paige, our own head of customer service, has done, personalization is the number one thing. I mean,
Number
it's been
one.
on the rise for years, but especially during these times. If you can personalize that experience, you are winning out there. Like that is the thing that is not going to go away. We're just going to lean heavier and heavier into personalization.
Well, we all like to hear our name. And so,
Of course, yeah.
you know, but we're not walking into a room and somebody's saying, "Hey, Kyle," or "Hey, Frank," you know,
Yeah.
like they're having to communicate it to us in a way that says, "I know who you are. I know
Yeah.
what you need."
Hey, first name, are you happy with your financial services that you've been receiving lately?
Yes, F name. Ooh, that's terrible. But yes, I think that like all these things are, you know, the critical. We're at an inflection point in services. We're at an inflection point in how we spend our time and how we choose our time. Is creating great opportunity out there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And shout out to Holly Gorton and Charlie Ice out there in the audience.
Yep.
We see you out there.
We see you. Pump you up. Okay, so this is home gym startup Tempo raises $220 million to meet the surge in demand for its workout device. So this is really huge. I mean, a lot of people are not going back into the gym. They want to like lose their COVID-19, right? And so they're trying to kind of go through workout regimens. Now there's this move from brick and mortar to click and mortar, where this organization, Home Gym, has gone through and created this video modeling, this AI, it's all about like form correction. You have a coach at home, and they figured it out. Like it's they've got the price points out there: $24.95. That's $2,495 to get the hardware. It's kind of like it's a big stand. Like if you think about it, it looks like a big like vending machine in your spare room, and it's got the workout kit in it, barbells, whatever you need in there comes with it, and like a monthly subscription. But what they're finding out is that like essentially, you know, why you hire a personal coach is, you know, you want to like drive down the number of injuries that you have, and which, you know, like will stall your progress, and all of this really comes down to bad form. So these people are all like, you know, physical therapists, and they're all professional trainers, and they've developed kind of like the way that they map a professional athlete, like a runner or a football player or something like that, their form. It's really, really powerful. And I think that like it's going to be interesting what this does to the gym industry.
Frank, we're going from one topic to the next, but personalization, you just said it. Like as you were describing that,
Yeah.
How are they going to win here? They're personalizing the fitness journey. I went to Nordstrom with the wife and kid over the weekend and tried out this new thing called Tonal. It's the same thing. It's their competitor.
Yeah.
Their number one competitor is Tonal, and Tonal has like a smart cabling system.
Yes.
As you're bench pressing, it gets harder or easier depending on the machine learning you.
Yes.
And personalizing that individual weight that you're lifting, personalizing the individual weight based on the context of the situation at the moment. Like, is it too hard? Is it too easy?
Yes.
It's gonna make sure that you are actually getting that pump.
Now, did it have that Kevin Nealon and Dana Carvey like pump you up? Like, did it have like an Arnold Schwarzenegger?
That's the thing that they're missing. They're missing that. If they get that,
They throw that
100%.
away. Oh, that's going to drive it right through the roof.
Yeah, they need like, you can download extra characters, right? Mortal Kombat's coming out in April. Like, you should be able to download like Liu Kang, and he should just be like whipping you into shape.
Fight.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. But this is really powerful. Again, you're seeing this digital disruption on the daily, right? It's going on. People are jumping in. They're taking, in fact, if you want to start a business, I think you just go to a traditional industry. You don't start with a new idea. You go to an old idea and an old service, and you just like flop digital on top of it. And I think that's another idea we need to talk about.
Yeah, you look for what area needs innovation, and that's typically the best place to start. All right, from customer experience to customer excellence, most businesses implement processes that end up creating more frustrating, painful moments during the customer journey. That is 100% a fact. That is something that we've seen. I know you've seen that a lot, Frank, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what we end up doing, right? We get into business. We think of, what's the best process that we can put in? And we're thinking of how do we put these processes in that help us do our jobs easier? But what that ends up doing is on the front end, oftentimes it's creating more of a painful, frustrating process for the customer. Maybe the people in the company, maybe that process is working for them, but is it working for the customer?
Yes.
If it's not working for the customer, you're doing something wrong. So four things you could do here, right? Focus on customer outcomes, leverage process mining. So think of it as discovery at scale. So this is kind of an interesting topic, Frank. We've seen this before, but process mining is something that is coming out. It's like it's getting more it's just getting more popular. So it's enabling broader data analysis than traditional approaches. So instead of relying on like small samples of data, now you're being able to perform analysis on thousands or millions of transactions.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have like 3 data points right there. So you have this process mining as one, right? So it's more of like a systems approach. You have another one, which is like, like to catch a gopher, you got to think like a gopher. It's one of my favorite sayings from Caddyshack, is that, you actually have to go and try your system. Like people just go in there and do it and just see like all the impediments and the challenges and the friction that you've created. Another one is to go in and actually just, write out the customer journeys and then inspect that, inspect where you want to drive, conversion, where you want to create engagement, where you want to amplify that engagement. And I know for us, as we're working with clients, we do all 3 of those things. And so, in fact, I saw a LinkedIn article here this week where a person says like, well, just try your stuff. And
how does it taste?
How does it taste? It doesn't taste good? Okay. You need to like now start to.
Well, yeah, that's leading into point number 3. Like use both human and digital intelligence. Like this is an obvious thing, right?
Yes.
We can't rely on just digital. We need human intelligence. Technology should augment and assist people, not replace them. I'm going to say that again. Technology should augment and assist people, not replace them. So there shouldn't be this fear of big AI, robots, all this stuff's going to come in and it's going to like 100% eliminate jobs. That's not the goal. The goal is to augment and assist us to do our jobs better and to focus on better things to do.
There's a lot of crappy jobs out there, actually, Kyle.
That's true. That
need to go away, just like a lot of the paradigms. So like that, I mean, this is an age-old thing. Like you can go back 100 years ago and look at the Industrial Revolution and people said like, what are people going to do?
Yeah. Well, we'll always find something to do. There's no shortage of things to do. It's just a matter of maximizing where the human talent can oversee and superset over the digital talent, right?
That's correct. That's correct. SoftServe. So Outcome .io actually has like a really good, or Outreach.io, pardon me. They basically have like the kind of sales engagement platforms, and they have the Support Leader's Guide to Scaling Smarter with Self-Service Support. And one of the things that they had here I thought was really interesting. One was like map your help content to your customer journey. So that kind of makes sense. This is all about going self-service. This is, this matches to everything that we've talked about today, right? Like how do you want to use your time? It's really coming down to how do you want to use your time? And then you also look inside your organization. How do we want to use our people's time? Do we want to handle mundane questions over and over again? Or do we want to kind of like, kind of upscale, up-level, communications and connection? So map your help content to your customer's journey. Define your funnel vision. And I like this, is like looking at like, what does that support funnel look like? We always think of that in terms of a sales funnel, but they're now using support funnel as a descriptor. And I think that's really powerful, right? Like that really speaks to that customer journey. Mirror your customer's language. Like, people think in terms of the pain they're experiencing, not in terms of a feature or a function. So, it's just mapping out like, what is this experience that you have? Let me get in alignment with you. And then show as well as you tell. I thought this was really good. I think this really speaks to the fact you go on YouTube and you see all these like, unpack this and how to do this. People don't even look at a manual anymore. They'll actually go to YouTube and say, how to connect your TV to whatever, and it's right there. Somebody's doing it. And then make your articles easy to scan. Like, just don't not embroil it in text. Like you've got to have, clear junction points in there, and then use real life examples. I thought this was a really smart way of starting to architect the self-service side of your business.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I mean, and we've seen this kind of play out in practice as well. I mean, we've all experienced it. Like you get onto like their chat, and it starts up with a bot, and the bot is basically trying to listen to what you're saying.
Yes.
And it's not perfect yet. You get into some situations where you get frustrated. Like that's not what I was saying. I was not saying this. But they're like, hey, cancellation policy. This is what it is. Was this helpful or not? No, that was not helpful. So we got to be careful with that, with too much of the self-serve. But it depends on your business, right? So you got context matters, right? What is your business? What is the customer you're trying to serve, and what do they care about?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a very high-touch organization, you got to be careful how much of the soft-serve stuff you put in there, because it's a high-touch practice, right? So you got to play to play to your strengths.
Yeah.
We talk about some customers are looking for like case deflection and call deflection. They don't want to answer the call because it costs money to answer a call.
That's right.
And if you're answering a call just to say what's my cancellation policy, when you could have just went into the chat, hey, I want to cancel, and it spits out cancellation policy. Here it is.
Yeah. And this is all really 100%. It comes down to how thoughtful are you, right?
Yes.
To your customers' time. Time is up.
So up next, more eyes to realize. So this is something that I wanted to chat about. This is something that we go through this quite a lot. I want to kind of paint a story here. So bear with me on this story here. So imagine you are selecting a technology platform, right? So you are an executive at an organization, and you're selecting a technology platform. It could be a communications play. It could be CX. So you have 7 that turned into 3, and then finally only 1. And it was an arduous process. There's negotiations. There were so many promises made. Plenty of expectations were set. Some of them met, some of them not met. And now it is time to execute. Now is the time. Like all of that, however long that took, now it's time to enter the implementation process, the good old implementation process. So you get in that first implementation call, and the few people that are in there, they walk you through this implementation, and you're like, no, that is not it at all. Or you're on the complete opposite side. You walk through an implementation call like, you guys got it 100%. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen is as the delta of like one over the other, it's having the right eyes in that meeting. And then sometimes there's certain eyes that are required to be there because they're on the payroll in a certain way, and like that's their job. They might be fresh out of college, and that's their first job, and they're supposed to be there, and that's great. But having more eyes in that room to realize the grand prize, like the outcome, like the business outcome, what are we actually trying to achieve? I've seen this more times than one pay itself off.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, people go through this urgent, selection and, acquisition process, and then they get into an implementation kickoff meeting, and the project manager says, so tell us, like, what would you like to accomplish? It's like, it's something that happens regularly. Hard to believe,
right?
That people have not really thought through this process. A lot of it comes down to bad documentation, bad knowledge base transfer, talking in specific generalities. It crushes things all the time. People don't want to go into that level of detail because they believe that it stalls velocity. Well, it may not. It may stall velocity a little bit. It may slow a little bit of velocity into the contract, but it'll just crush velocity in implementation, which is where people inside the organization will experience you and want to keep you there inside the business. One of the things that you can do, like that I found in some of the methodologies that I've kind of promulgated and pulled together, was when you go into that kickoff meeting, is to educate that user group. Hopefully you know them. Like hopefully you've had like some of the implementation people, not just sales engineers on the pre-calls, but you tell them like, this is what we're looking to do, and you let them validate it.
Yeah, having that clear documentation, statement of understanding.
Yep.
That's the way to win that.
It is indeed. Nuanced. Wow. Microsoft does it again. They acquire Nuance Communications for $19.7 billion.
Small chunk of change.
Yeah. It's the largest after their purchase of LinkedIn. So they're dropping some big change out there. And what this kind of, in some respects, like when you read it, if you were kind of looking at this inside of the marketplace, you might think, well, this just doesn't really like apply to me as a consumer, right? Or maybe as a technologist, you'd say, well, Nuance, I kind of know of them. Like I hear they're kind of pretty big in healthcare, and they're working around like conversational AI in healthcare, but they're blowing up in enterprise as well. And so what is happening here with Microsoft? Microsoft is jumping into the CX game. Productivity, gotcha. Not as sexy. CX, okay. That's something we need to run with. So, Nuance, they're the people behind Siri. Like they're players.
Wow.
Yeah, that's huge. And they're bringing AI and voice. They're built on Azure, so they're already living in the home that their papa Microsoft built. And they're going to bring all this stuff into Teams, and they're going to bring it into O365. So not just conversational, analytics, but conversational AI. And they're already kind of leading in the conversational AI and the ambient solution space. So you think about Alexa, Google Home, all of that. This is actually really monumental.
Oh yeah, I think about, Microsoft has their Cortana, which is not nearly as popular as Siri or Alexa.
Nope.
But or even OK Google, which is not even a name. It's just that's Google.
That's right.
but yeah, it'd be interesting to see, how they could layer, if it stays Cortana or whatever, how they layer all of these things into that better CX play. And it's also just a testament to CX as a focal point, right? Customer experience as a focal point. Every organization right now, they're looking at CX. They're looking at, or they've been, right, and they're still looking for that next level CX. How do we get from where we are now to an even better CX? And it's this never-ending journey that is going to be just dictated based on what the customer at the edge wants and cares about today.
Yeah. And how important is like things like, Azure and GCP and AWS. I can tell you to Amazon, once they brought in AWS, it's the first time they ever turned a profit. I'll let you know that. In their entire history, they had never had a profit until they had AWS. That's how big a hyperscale environment is to the company. Now you have Azure, and they have a rooted conversational AI technology that you as a consumer can go in and tie into.
Yes. Bang. Well, that's the show. Hope you enjoyed the time with us today. We are live on Clubhouse. We're hanging out for just a little bit longer over here on Clubhouse. So if you're out there watching on LinkedIn Land or on YouTube, you can join us on Clubhouse right now. The link is down below here, acuerdo.club. And also, if you want to keep up with everything that we got going on, Frank, tell them how they can.
Well, there's a lot of ways that they can keep up with
There's
us.
one way on the screen in particular.
There is one way on the screen in particular. Okay, you're going to have to take that one for me because I don't think I'm looking at that screen right now.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so if you want to keep in touch with everything that we got going on over at DBX, the Digital Business Experience, you can text DBX to 512-790-7226. A lot of things are popping over here. We have now turned this into a 7-day-a-week Alexa flash briefing. So now you can get us every morning. If it wasn't enough to have us once a week, you can get us on your Alexa every single morning. Digital Disruption Daily is a skill in the Alexa skill store. So you can add that and make us part of your morning.
Yeah, there's also, like with not only Alexa, but also with Apple Podcasts, we have a kind of a secondary part of DBX, which we call sessions. And in sessions, we just have a conversation. We unpack topics. We have special guests. They're not within sight of this format. I'm getting a lot of really great feedback from people that saying like this is useful. It's like great for a walk, great in the car, but it helps them kind of get dialed into like what's going on in the CX world and maybe how to kind of like make sense of the disruption that everybody's encountering. So DBX sessions, on Apple Podcast, and if you again go through and join up in our community as well, you're going to get notifications around when we're dropping different content, both video podcasts as well as audio podcasts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then The link for all those things we just talked about is right here on the screen. go.acuerdo.io/dbx. But you'll also get that link if you text us dbx. So appreciate you guys being with us today. That's the show. That's a wrap, Frank.
Yeah, a lot of fun. See you next time.